We are in Proverbs chapter 18, beginning in verse 16 today. And this is verse 16. A man's gifts make room for him and brings him before great men. There are other proverbs we can go to concerning this. In Proverbs 22, verse 29, do you see a man who excels in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before unknown men. But this is a man's gift. A man's gift makes room for him. And this is not necessarily a bribe. We've talked about bribes, and that word has come up before in a proverb. But this can lift someone up, depending on the gift, can lift someone up even before great men. Now, when we get to Proverbs 22-29, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but we'll say some things about it now. That someone who, in fact, and I realize this would not necessarily be a great gift, as in some physical kind of gift, but standing before kings or bring him before great men, there has to be a significant thing. It can't be mediocre. It can't be lackluster. It can't be something that is extremely common. It can't be. It's going to have to be more than a birthday card. It's going to have to be an actual gift that brings you there, and it's just a matter of fact. Proverbs 19 and verse 6, many entreat the favor of the nobility, and every man is a friend to one who gives gifts. That is just a way of, that's just the way it is. That's what happens. Someone who has things to give and gives it generously is someone who will be appreciated and may even be appreciated before the great. We also have that of 17 and verse 18. A man devoid of understanding. Wait a minute. Do I have that right? Did I even read that right? No, that's wrong in my notes. Yeah, never mind that. I don't know why that's even in there. I must have meant something else and got the numbers wrong. Okay, so we go to verse 17. So we're in chapter 18, verse 17. This harkens back. This takes us back to verse 13. We'll read verse 13 first. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. Now we come to verse 17. The first one to plead his cause seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him. All right, so here we have the first hearing of the story, the first hearing of what occurred. And this is going to be intended, the intent of the story is to bring out sympathy. That's what it is. We read again. The first one to plead his cause seems right. All right, there's no contradictions at the moment, and it is presented with an intent in mind, with a purpose in mind, and that is to bring out some kind of mercy, some kind of empathy out of the person. Then there's the next part of this, until his neighbor comes and examines him. All right, there may be another part to the story, another side to the story. Things have been left out, possibly false things brought in. And when things are properly examined, this story may fall apart. And what seems obvious may be something completely different. It may have a different conclusion from the case, the cause that seems right. There may be something a little bit deeper that needs to be looked into. And a neighbor comes and examines him and getting more of the truth, or just getting to the truth. Now we come to verse 18, because verse 17 and verse 18 could be thought of as connected. It could be thought of that way. Each one of them can be independent, that's for sure. But this may be very well connected. Casting lots causes contentions to cease and keeps the mighty apart. Okay, so there is some sort of dispute, and there is a contention that is going on. And going back to verse 17, you have someone who has pled their cause, and it seems right. Someone else has come in and done a little bit of examining, and it isn't, it's not working out. Okay, but what happens when you have two people at odds with each other, and you cannot determine the truth? You know the whole thing of he said, she said. All right, that this was between two people. You weren't there. There are no more witnesses. He says one thing, she says another thing. How are you going to get to the truth? You may never, ever get to the truth. You may never know what that is. Now, this casting lots, of course, we can go to places such as Proverbs 19 and verse 21. Nevertheless, the Lord's counsel, that will stand. But also, Proverbs 16:33, which we've already covered, the lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. And this is this is all in that time of casting lots to find a decision. What is the truth concerning this? Because we can't know. We can't determine what this is. We don't know what the truth happens to be in all this, and there is a contention. I'll just throw in a personal story. And of course, we couldn't cast lots. That's not possible today, to get to think that God is going to be answering through lots today. But I'm not going to use names whatsoever. I'm going to use Group A, Group B, and Group C. All right? At a particular point in time, I knew Group A, I knew Group B. I knew them very well before one could even classify them in groups. I knew them very well. I trusted them very well. Trusted them. Members of the church, all of them. Group A would tell us one thing. Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay. Group B would tell us something else. Okay, and Catrice and I were hearing it, and we didn't tell the other side that there's a problem here, but there was a problem here. There was a problem. Somebody is either not communicating, possibility. Someone is misinterpreting, a possibility. Someone's lying. I didn't like that possibility. Something's not right. And so we could not determine the truth. It didn't concern us at all, so we kept an arm's distance from it. You know, they say this, okay. Who do I trust? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. But we just stay out of it. It doesn't concern us. Now, when it does, that's a different matter. But it doesn't. Now, advance a few years past that. We have Group A, now Group C. Group A is saying one thing. Group C is saying something completely else. Now, this has nothing to do with B. Group C is saying something completely different. Once again, there is no communication, or something's happening, misinterpretation, or somebody's lying. That's all there is to it. But now we could see there's something common in both of these situations. And the common was A. A seemed to be, B and C were disconnected. Okay? A was in both situations telling us something that the others weren't saying. And they were two separate incidents altogether. And what's our only conclusion in this? Is that something's up with A. I don't know what it is, but something's up with A. Best not always take their word for it. Best not. I don't know if they're lying. I don't know. I can't judge it. I don't know if they're misinterpreting, which means they're not trying to deceive anybody. They've just wildly misinterpreted. I don't know what it is. But now we can see, B was probably telling us what happened. C was probably telling us what happened. And A was getting it all wrong. Getting it all wrong. And just keeping an arm, they have to tell us these things for whatever reason, and just keep an arm's distance away from it. And but with something like that, back in the Old Testament days, casting lots could be the very thing to where you could know the truth. And we go to the last phrase in this, and keeps the second part of the couplet, and keeps the mighty apart. That the mighty can in fact cause the greatest amount of harm. And once we come to the truth of a matter, this may be the only way to settle a dispute. This may be it, and it keeps the mighty apart. That the contention now has ceased. And now we could bring this up to today. We could do this, of where we have two people, or two groups, they both have opinions. And the opinions are matters of expediency. All right? We say this other group says no, we say this. Once again, matters of expediency. That's it. And there is no eldership to have the say in it. There's nothing like that. It's a group that wants this, the other group doesn't want this, wants this. How best to solve that might be, if it's a matter of expediency, give way to the other side. All right? Give way and just say, my opinion doesn't matter. Just give way to the other side. Or it could be, we'll flip a coin for it. We could bring it to that point. I think giving way to the other side is better if it's a matter of expediency, if that's what it is. And just saying, my opinion accounts to nothing. Yes, sir?
For me, it seems to help greatly to realize with all of the scripture we have concerning unity,
Mm-hmm.
am I going to draw a line of fellowship
Correct.
based on,
Yeah.
but I like it this way?
Yeah. Yeah, and the comment is a matter of unity, of keeping unity. And why would I break unity of a congregation simply because I want something and somebody wants something else? All right, it's matters of opinion. That's it. I'll just use painting a building. I want to paint the building red. He wants to paint the building green. I'm red party. He's green party. Yeah. That's right. Or something. And do we split the congregation over something as stupid as that? Well, I hope not. I hope not. Just give way. Does it have to be painted at all? Maybe it doesn't. But all right, when we're talking about, let's just go ahead and show the distinction here. Show the distinction. If it's not a matter of expediency, but a matter of doctrine, God always wins. Just give it that. God always wins. I may be wrong in the situation. God is not. The other person may be wrong in the situation. God is never wrong. And maybe we need to be looking into what the issue is. And I may find that I'm on the wrong side of this and need to make adjustments. We go to God to solve this for us. And like with Paul talking to the brethren, writing to the brethren in 1 Corinthians, he said concerning them going to the point of taking each other to court. All right, now that's going to a far extreme, but taking them to court. And he said it would have been better just to be wronged than to do that. Taking this out into the courts is should not have been done at all. Letting them make this decision, letting them know the disunity and know the frailties of what's going on in this local congregation and the corruption going on in this local congregation. No, don't do that at all. Now, we come to verse 19. A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city, and contentions are like bars of a castle. All right? There is more an enemy who's your enemy and knows you're their enemy and they're your enemy. You cannot betray them because they don't trust you. You can't betray them. All right, so they don't have any emotion in the game concerning being betrayed. Now, if you call for their trust and they trust you and you break that trust, that's a betrayal. But when it comes to a brother, well, any harm that would be an offense, and understand an offense. This isn't that you said something offensive or you did something that was just kind of offended them. This is an offense against them. A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city because there's that feeling of betrayal. Okay, let's just go there. Esau, how do you think he felt? Or now he was the dummy that did it. He was the, and yeah, it was a very, very bad deal to sell his birthright. That was, and he should have known better. He should have known better, but Esau is one that he's hungry, and I guess he thinks he's starving and he's not going to live. So what's the point of a birthright? But was Esau offended? Yes. Was Jacob afraid of Esau for years to come? Yes. That is why he had to leave, and his mother was very insistent that he leave. And so he's off with Laban for at least 14 or so years, probably a little bit more than 14. He's off out there with Laban, and when he finally leaves his father-in-law, he is deathly afraid of Esau and what Esau might do if he came across him. Because there's some, we call it bad blood. There's some bad blood there. And a brother offended is harder to win than a strong city. What does it mean to burn your bridges? Where there had been a bridge, you went and actively burned it down. Which means the other person who helped build that bridge might not want to build another one for you. They might not. It may be the relationship from this point on may be that they never trust you again because they can't trust you. Can they forgive you? Certainly they can and should. Do they have to trust you? No, they don't. You can forgive someone and not put them in the same situation of which they have harmed you. You don't have to put them in the same situation. But to forgive them, yes, you do. Now, an offended brother, we come to Proverbs 17:17, going back there. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. All right, he's born for adversity, but he's not born to be offended by you. And he's not born to be betrayed by you. He would be there for you until you destroyed that relationship, until you have done something that where they'll never trust you again. And these contentions are like the bars of a castle. They're stuck. You can't get through that. You can't get through it. And you probably know someone from your personal experience, maybe someone even in your family, of where you have perhaps two brothers or two relatives, not brothers, but where something happened, you may not even know it happened, and they are estranged. They are far apart from each other, and that was that. And may never have talked to each other ever again. Now we come to verse 20. A man's stomach shall be satisfied from the fruit of his mouth, from the produce of his lips he will be filled. Now we have various things that do speak of this. In verse 21 is also connected in this. But Proverbs 12:14, a man will be satisfied with the good, a man will be satisfied with good by the fruit of his mouth, and the recompense of a man's hands will be rewarded to him. So there is that of speaking wisdom, speaking truth, speaking what is good, speaking things even that are encouraging, being there, and that you can be satisfied by this, satisfied from the fruit of his mouth, from the produce of his lips he shall be filled. And here is someone who speaks wisdom. Someone who speaks foolishness, that's a different matter. Someone who's a raving lunatic, that's a different matter. Someone who's just a constantly angry, or a rebel rouser, or someone who's just trying to stir people up, a divisive man, that's a different fruit entirely. That's very destructive, as a matter of fact. Now, we go to verse 21, because this deals with words again. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Who love it, what would that be? Well, that would be life. That would be wisdom. But death and life are in the power of the tongue. Yeah. It depends on the person as to how careful they need to be with their words. All of us need to be careful, but someone who is a powerful person, kings, presidents, and the like, their very words can kill people. May be completely unintentional. May be completely unintentional. But their words can create something, and now lives are lost because of it. And obviously you have someone such as a king or a judge who does have the power of death. Of course, today it'd be someone where there's a death penalty, but they have that power of death or life. And we will be coming to a point concerning the wrath of kings, and that it's not a good thing, the wrath of a king. But dealing with his pleasure, that is a good thing. But death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Note again that all of us should be taking care of what we say. And be careful that we're not spreading things. Be careful that we're not being divisive. Be very, very careful that there is a power that is found in words. Now we come to verse 22. And I'm going to stay here just for a bit. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Now this is coming from the author, who also, it speaks in 14 in verse 1 of a wise woman and a foolish woman. That the wise woman builds her home, the foolish one tears it down with her hands. That would be a foolish woman would be an adulteress. A foolish woman would be someone who now despises her husband and her children. She despises the one closest to them and just tearing everything apart. So we have to put it into the proper perspective in this. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Well, chapter 19, verse 14 gives us a little more. Houses and riches are an inheritance from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. Now, a prudent life doesn't mean one that knows how to shop well. All right? That she is prudent in what she buys. She knows how to get the best bargain. She knows where to go. She knows what to get. She knows that is low level. A value? Yeah, there's a value to that. But that is low level. Prudence, we have already discussed prudence here. Prudence is a matter of wisdom that goes beyond just the basics of living. This is someone who acts wisely at all times. This is someone who is not contentious. This is someone who is going to be a support for her family in the wisest sort of way, bringing her children up in the wisest sort of way, taking care of them, having a love for them, and not being concerned so much about the meager stuff or the things that someone can be attracted by, but this is having a love for their home and their family, husband and children. Now, we're going to read the verse again. And chapter 19, verse 14 is saying the same thing. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. All right, is this providential? To say it's not the workings of God is to absolutely toss these verses out. To say it's not providential. To say that there is no working of God involved in this. Because it says in chapter 19, verse 14, from the Lord. Here also, 18:22, from the Lord. And obtains favor from the Lord. Here and this obviously is that of that wise wife, that prudent wife, and from the foolish wife of chapter 14, verse 1, compare her to Proverbs 31, 10 through 31. There is quite a description of that prudent wife. There is that description that is there. And also compare that to 19:13 and others of where you have a contentious wife. All right, there is this favor from the Lord. Now, is this a work of providence? I'm going to say yes. And obviously you already know that conclusion. I'm going to say yes, it is. It is providential. And this is where I will disagree with someone who I greatly respect. Greatly respect. And no problem whatsoever. None at all. But I personally believe it has to be. The old saying, they were made for each other, I think that can definitely be the case. I think that can definitely be the case of where two people were, in fact, made for each other in the working of providence that they were. Now, that doesn't mean sin can't enter in and things happen, and that doesn't mean that someone could never make a bad decision, and you knew that guy was in and out of prison. You knew he had a terrible drug addiction. You knew that going in. You think he's just going to change because of you. He's not. All right? And is that, in fact, the providence of God? I can't say that is. We can do things, and such as Saul, the Saul of Benjamin, first king of Israel. God chose him. God expected him to behave like a righteous king, but he doesn't. He becomes a raving madman, wanting to kill David, and would also have killed Jonathan, who he wanted to be the next king. He would have killed his own son for helping David. And just because God has brought somebody into a particular position does not mean they do the will of God. That would hold true to husband and wife. Do I believe that two people can in fact be meant for each other? Yes, I do. And I'm not coming from a romantic sort of idea, but the idea of providence. That idea of providence, that two people can be. And once again, not everybody's going to find that. I'm just saying, not everybody's going to find that. I don't think it's universal all the way around. That some folks, they never get married. Or some folks, they made a bad decision. But here is this idea that God is involved in this. That He is involved in this. And that there is favor from the Lord being shown in this. Now, we go to verse 23. Comparison between poor and rich. The poor man uses entreaties, but the rich answers roughly. All right. The poor have no power or place, but they have needs. And the rich they are here in this. The rich person doesn't have to be like this, but overly confident, backed by position and wealth. And the poor asks, entreats, and the wealthy is just abrupt and rough, and it's a no. And that is just showing a contrast in this, but that doesn't mean that every rich person will be like that. And we can look at the generosity of those in the Bible as way of examples of people who were obviously wealthy. Abraham was wealthy. Lydia was wealthy. She had to have been, being a seller of purple. She had her own business. That would have been a very profitable thing to be involved in. We could have seen someone like Barnabas obviously was wealthy because he had land, he had property to sell. What does he do? He gives it to the church, is what he does. He's not of this sort that answers roughly. He's not like that. And most certainly, Boaz was not either. Boaz was a very wealthy man, and he doesn't rebuke Ruth being there. He doesn't chase her away or have his men chase her away. Now, verse 24. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Yes. Okay, the first part is a necessity and would seem obvious, that if you want friends, you've got to behave like a friend. You've got to be friendly. And there are kids that I have seen. I think, well, no, it's both. I was about to say mostly coming from boys, but not necessarily coming from boys. of there, you want a friend out of this person. You want them to play with you. You want to have a nice afternoon with this person, but you're not treating them well. Why would they want to be a friend to you? Why do you think they would want to play with you at all? Because you're really treating them rotten. You have to be a friend to gain friends. And there is a value. A friend can stick closer than a brother. And this goes back to 17:17. We already made mention of it. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. That friend can stick closer than a physical brother. And maybe you've had it in your life where someone who is a friend keeps closer tabs on you, has a greater interest in what you're doing than your own brother does, and will help you when a brother might not help at all. And here is, we all desire friends. If you don't, maybe you're kidding yourself, I don't know. But there is a benefit to having friends. You don't really want to live your life as a hermit. I think that's generally a bad idea. But now we go to chapter 19. Moving into chapter 19. Chapter 19 begins, "Better is the poor who walks in his integrity than one who is perverse in his lips and is a fool." All right, we've got a lot of proverbs that are associated with that. A lot. Going back to 2 and verse 12, 3 and 32. There's a long list in this. In 28 and verse 6, "Better is the poor who walks in his integrity." All right, that is repeating the first line. And there are several proverbs actually that repeat a first line, and then the second line is somewhat different. This is one of those. In last week, we talked about two proverbs where the first line was identical and the second line changed the meaning of each proverb. It changed the meaning of that first line. It changed it, and or what you might interpret from that first line. First line sets it up. The second line fills it out. The second line may direct the meaning. Second line may bolster the meaning that you would have already had from the first line. It depends on the proverb and the wording. But here, 28 and verse 6, "Better is the poor who walks in his integrity than one perverse in his ways, though he be rich." Now, yes, the 28 in verse 6 adds a little something that 19 and 1 doesn't. "Than one who is perverse in his lips and is a fool." All right, it doesn't mention that the fool is rich at all. But 28:6 does mention that. Someone who's perverse in his ways, he's rich. It's better to be poor and walk in your integrity. To take poverty and integrity over wealth and perversity. Because one is a lot better than the other. And those who are perverse actually know they got a problem. They actually know it. Deep down, they may never admit it, but they know there are people who behave not just a little bit better than them, but entirely better than them. They know it. And to lose your integrity, all right, you have to deal with your conscience on that, and you have to start working on your conscience, trying to kill it. Walk in your integrity is greater than riches. Now we go to verse 2, 19 and verse 2. And 19 and verse 2 has similarities to verse 8, and we'll look at them both together. Also, it is not good for a soul to be without knowledge, and he sins who hastens with his feet. So, what do you think the book of Proverbs is about? It's about wisdom, knowledge, understanding. To having that knowledge so that you can then act on that knowledge and gain wisdom, but having an understanding of how do you use that knowledge? What do we need to understand in this life? Well, there's a lot, and Proverbs is trying to help us in that. And of course, you have places like Hosea 4 and 6 saying, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. All right, they're destroyed. It's destroying them because they don't know God. They don't know the Word of God. It is something foreign to them. They know nothing. And that describes a lot of people in our culture. A lot of people where they know nothing. It used to be, when I was a kid, it used to be, and this isn't one of those things of things were so much better than that. Yeah, there were things, people are people, things are rotten, but it's just a description. I remember as a kid, an adult could make a Bible reference. Now, it had to be a common one, like Noah's Ark. All right, it had to be a common one where kids would have been taught that. Or it'd have to be common, such as miracles of Christ. It would have to be something that kids, but generally speaking, everybody knew what the teacher was talking about, or what the adult was talking about. Everybody knew, because they had at least a little bit of knowledge of the Bible. But that's not the case anymore. That is not the case. Where they have no idea what you're talking about. You make a reference of concerning an ark, they don't know what you're talking about. You're talking in a foreign language to them. Or certain things referencing the Bible and have no idea that the Bible was just referenced, which is really funny because there are very worldly authors of the past, greatly admired, of if you're reading their works, that this person, very worldly, just cited the words of Christ, or just cited a major principle in the Bible. They just went and referenced it, and you wonder how many people actually understood this person who is worldly. There's no doubt about that. Knew the Bible. Well, obviously they knew their Bible because they can make references to it, and it's lost on many people today what that person was actually citing from, or that they were even citing anything. It was just an original thought with them, and it wasn't. Okay, our next verse 3, we'll come back to that next week. We have run out of time. I appreciate everybody being with us, and hope to see everyone next week. Thank you.